Holy City Center Radio, this is episode 313, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. It's a couple 13s here. We got November 13th, episode 313. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, thinking about Friday the 13th, but thankfully it's Wednesday, so maybe I'm clear of any bad luck despite those numbers aligning. I hope you're having a great week so far. Got lots to catch you up on. Not too much going on in my world. I did finally try Palmyra barbecue a couple weekends ago. Very good, just like everybody says. No, it's not going to be the cheapest meal around, but it's not horrible. And it was just fantastic. Unfortunately, when I went, it was a little bit later in the day and they were out of a lot of things. You know how that sometimes with barbecue restaurants, that's the case. So I was able to get some beef ribs, which were really great. I got to try the beef cheeks, which is like what everybody always talks about at this place. They were very melty, like easy, just like falling apart in your hands. The flavors, is amazing. I'm not a big fan of certain types of things mouthfeel wise. So even though there's lots of things that taste good, if there's something about the feeling of it in my mouth, it will just make me not really enjoy it. And that was kind of the case with the beef cheeks. That's just a weird me thing. Like, it was tasty. I wouldn't mind having, a little bit here and there, but I wouldn't, make that my entire order. Again, that's just a me thing. It really does taste good, but just something about the mouthfeel. Not a big fan. Outside of that, I haven't done anything too exciting. Just, working and doing the podcast and all that good stuff. So speaking of that, let's get into the latest news. As of this recording, 5 more of the escaped monkeys out in, or down, I guess I should say, in Yemassee were captured earlier this week, I believe on Monday, but I didn't see any updates on Tuesday. So as of this recording, the latest update I have is that now a total of 30 of the original 43 escaped primates have now been captured. So there are 13 still on the loose. Now, officials have said that they're going to continue to try to, what they say, safely capture them, as long as it takes, basically. So we'll see in the end how long it did take. But we're approaching a week here of the monkeys being outside on their own. Now, the MSC Police Department has said that the need for the public to continue to avoid the area around Alpha Genesis Research Center is still in place. So it seems, again, based on reports, not that they're being super forthcoming about all this information, but it seems that the monkeys have escaped, like a building, but are still on the property of this research center. So the police went from saying, like, everybody in the area, lock your doors, windows, or lock your windows and just be careful and blah, blah, blah. Now they're more saying, like, just try to stay away from the research center. So it seems that none of them are really venturing far. Maybe they can't. I don't know the setup of this facility. I tried to look it up on Google Maps, and it was not super clear, like, what buildings were part of this facility. Are there fences? What kind of protection is there? So it's tough to know for sure all those details, but it seems, based on reports, that, first it seemed like these monkeys were just running wild throughout the town of Yemassee, and then slowly but surely, as more news trickles out, you realize, it seems they're just kind of in that area, and they're, again, either they just aren't or can't venture further out than that. So in any event, as of this recording, 13 of them are still on the loose. I'll be sure to provide you updates on this wild story as they come in. Back on November 4th, this whole Union Pier Tax Increment Financing District, also known as a TIF, TIF, we have another update on it, and that is that Charleston City Council passed a measure to establish a TIF district at the Union Pier property. The vote included the passage of 2 intergovernmental agreements, also known as IGAs, with both Charleston County and the Charleston County School District. This is apparently the first type of agreement in the city's history, according to a press release from the city. Now, you may remember with this Union Pier TIF district, it has had to go through all these different entities and get approved. Charleston County School District gave it the thumbs up, as did Charleston County. And now Charleston City Council has gone ahead and greenlit it, as well as the IGAs, as I mentioned. So, what does all this mean exactly? A few things. First, those agreements that I mentioned, the IGAs, will allow the county to acquire additional parking spaces on, that property, Union Pier, whatever the development ends up being. They're going to have the ability to purchase more parking spaces specifically for the county. And apparently, somehow, I'm guessing maybe these are spaces that they can charge for or something because it's going to benefit the county's financial outlook, according to the city of Charleston. Additionally, Charleston County school districts will acquire the third floor of 75 Calhoun Street, which is currently leased by the city. This will enable the consolidation of its staff, and it will save about $14 million annually, as they have been relying on trailers for office space in North Charleston. So that's certainly a good thing for the Charleston County School District. That's a big chunk of money that can be used for something else. So that's what these agreements will do. As for the TIF district itself, it's a collaboration between these three groups, and it will allow for public investments in enhancing, say, green spaces, waterfront access, and affordable housing by getting property taxes from the 60 plus acre site over the next 30 years. So, whatever moves into that area, businesses, housing, whether that's apartments or what have you, whatever else may become part of this Union Pier project, they will be getting, they'll have property taxes, of course. And over the next 30 years, those taxes are going to, go towards all of these entities. Now, the city says that they're hoping this project will ensure, they're working to ensure that developments, whatever they may be that come in, will respect the city's character, maintain appropriate density so it doesn't get too crowded, and include a public engagement process so they can get community input. So the community, of course, feels that they actually have a say on whatever this major project is going to become. In addition to all that, the county, the city, and the school board are set to benefit from increased revenue that's generated through the accommodations tax, hospitality tax, and sales tax that is associated with Union Pier development. So, a lot of tax money is what they are envisioning coming from this project. And now the city, county, and the school district are all benefit from those taxes in some capacity. So the thought here is that some of the downtown CCSD schools are currently operating at 40% below capacity. Sorry, that's not the thought. That is what's happening. But the thought about that is that these upcoming developments will add more students, which in turn means more funding that will benefit the students and teachers at CCSD. So a lot of talk about how this Union Pier project is going to have a lot of community input, and how these three entities are going to benefit from taxes, which will improve all manner of things. How this will all play out, what percentages they get, and all that we'll find out, as this project moves along. But this is the latest news on that Union Pier development, this TIF project, some involving money. It gets a little confusing, but I hope I made it a little bit clear what this is all about. And once we finally get some more information as far as what developments might be coming in, or when they're going to have community, meetings, or where you can give input of what you would like to see there, I'll be sure to let you know. We recently got an update on a somewhat older story. Remember that time that military jet crashed in the state, and thankfully no one was injured? Well, the United States Marine Corps announced last week that they've concluded their investigation into that mishap. If I mean, that's one thing that they can call it, and that's how they decided to word it. And it happened last year, and it resulted in $100 million F-35 crashing in Williamsburg County. The pilot safely ejected before it crashed. So the investigation concluded that the accident was a result of pilot error, and this is all according to the Second Marine Aircraft Wing, who released this report. Excuse me. The crash happened back on September 17th of 2023. I can't believe it's over a year old at this point. It seems like it didn't happen that long ago. So what ended up happening, the pilot ejected from the aircraft while trying to execute a climb out during a missed approach near the Joint Base Charleston. After the pilot ejected, the unmanned aircraft flew for 11 minutes and 21 seconds before crashing in a rural area an estimated 64 nautical miles northeast of the airfield in Williamsburg County. Now, all of this is coming from military officials. These are not my words. This is from their report. So investigators determined that the pilot incorrectly diagnosed a flight emergency and ejected from the aircraft, which was still flyable. And yes, there was a heavy rainstorm going on at the time, and the aircraft suffered with some electrical and display malfunctions. But they believed the decision to eject was inappropriate because commanded flight inputs were in progress, standby flight instrumentation was providing accurate data, and the aircraft's backup radio was at least partially functional. So they do say the weather was a compounding factor. Um, as the primary radios, the transponder, the tactical airway navigation system, and the instrument landing system all failed during an electrical event. So basically, the pilot seems to have believed that he was in imminent danger. This craft was going down, so he ejected. Obviously, the craft did go down when, when it's unmanned, it's going to happen at some point. But apparently, military officials believe that he could have continued to fly and could have corrected these issues and did not need to eject. He could have ultimately landed safely. So, they're putting it on the pilot. I don't know. I don't know anything about flying planes, so who knows? But I'm was thankful a year ago that no one was hurt, and I'm even more thankful now because could you imagine if someone was hurt and they lay this blame on the pilot, saying basically like people died because you did something you weren't supposed to. So that is what they are saying happened during this event, and hopefully nothing like this will ever happen again. The State Law Enforcement Division, also known as SLED, failed to follow state law and national best practices in its long delayed implementation of new sexual assault kit tracking system that they had. This, according to an October 31st report from the South Carolina Legislative Audit Council. Now, in response to those accusations, SLED Chief Mark Keel put out a 10-page response where he called the reports countless misrepresentations and claimed that auditors disregarded important information in order to paint a seemingly predetermined and flawed narrative of SLED's performance. Basically, just saying this is BS. We don't have this failure. The report, going back to the original, not the response, said that SLED failed to meet its legally mandated June 1st, 2022 deadline for implementation, finally bringing the system online over 2 years later on February 20th, 2024. The Sexual Assault Kit Task Force, which was created in September of 2020, was supposed to guide and assist in the implementation of the new tracking system, but they have only met twice since its formation 4 years ago. The report went on to say that SLED's contract to outsource the Sexual Assault Kit Task Force violates state law because it does not require the vendor to participate in the tracking process. So they were not supposed to outsource this role, and they did. The report also says that SLED cannot verify the number of untested kits they have statewide. And then finally, testing in South Carolina remains highly inefficient with an average completion time of 457 days compared to 90 days or less in most states. In its conclusion, the report found that the current system of investigating sexual assault offenses is insufficient, and in the absence of mandated processing and storage times, justice is being delayed or denied completely for victims, many of whom are under the age of 18. Now, going back to SLED Chief Keel's response, he gave a point-by-point rebuttal and concluded that SLED actually successfully implemented the new tracking system, meeting the law's stated intent to empower survivors with information, assist law enforcement with investigations and crime prevention, and create transparency and foster public trust. So, a lot of fancy words, a lot of like legalese type sound, when you have these reports and stuff, people trying to kind of cover themselves, making sure everything is clear and yada, yada, yada. Basically, the South Carolina Legislative Audit Council, said that SLED was not doing what it was supposed to do in terms of tracking these sexual assault kits. You may have seen stories nationwide where there are many places that just have a crazy backlog of kits that need to be tested. And as they said, this can delay justice or completely prevent justice for some of these victims because the wait times are so long and some people are still waiting and waiting and waiting. obviously, if the report is accurate, this is very distressing, especially that they have an average completion time of 457 days. That's over a year, obviously. But even more concerning is that most states do it in 3 months or less. It's unacceptable that it takes that long to get results from these kits. Now, Keel may say that they have hit all the minimum barriers and bullet points that they were supposed to, but it certainly doesn't seem, even if that is true, to me, it's still unacceptable. It should be a hell of a lot better than it is. So very disappointing news. And hopefully, even though, Keel came out and tried to rebut all these points, hopefully internally, they are working to change a perception that is now out there. And all these numbers and things that we've talked about will improve, and they'll be doing the things that they're supposed to do. That'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I will be back on Friday. I believe I'll have an interview for you, actually. So be sure to like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast so you don't miss any episodes, number one. And number two, those other things help me out so that more people potentially will hear the podcast. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Sound System for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio, and also Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show. I'll talk to you in a couple days, but until then, good night and good luck.